My name is Cindy. I'm 31, and until last year, I truly believed family meant stability, that no matter how hard it got, you carried each other, even if that meant carrying everything alone. I was the reliable one, the daughter who handled things quietly, who sent the birthday money, covered the missing bills, kept everyone afloat without asking for thanks. But that illusion shattered one night over dinner in Detroit. The table was tense, small talk barely holding us together, and then my mother exploded. "You're useless in this house. Get out." Her words hit me like a slap, echoing through the silence while every eye turned toward me. I didn't yell, didn't cry. I just nodded, asked to be excused, and walked out. That night, I packed my things, one small suitcase, only the essentials. No scene, no drama. I drove away from the house I had been holding together for years. It wasn't an escape. It was release. I even texted my assistant to freeze all payments tied to my family's accounts. A week passed in total silence. Then my phone rang. Mom. Her voice was tight, almost panicked. "Who's going to handle the bills now? They're overdue." She tried to sound calm, but the desperation was obvious. I paused, then said softly, "Maybe someone useful will." No anger, no explanation. I hung up. The calls kept coming. Mom, Dad, my brother, but by then I was gone, completely gone, wondering how long it would take for them to feel the weight I had carried for years. If you've ever been the invisible backbone of your family, only to be cast aside, hit like and subscribe, because I'm going to tell you how I stood up, reclaimed my life, and built boundaries no one will ever cross again. I grew up in a small house in Detroit, where winters felt endless, and the walls always echoed with the sound of my parents' TV at night. As the oldest child, I learned early how to balance expectation with responsibility. My brother was the kind of person who lit up every room, charming, surrounded by friends, always talking about his next million-dollar idea that never quite happened. My sister was different, the born artist, free-spirited, unpredictable, constantly praised for being special. And me, I was the one who kept everything running. The kid who turned in homework on time, washed the dishes, answered the phone, comforted Mom, fixed everyone's mistakes, and aimed just a little higher every time, because for me, effort wasn't exceptional, it was expected. At first I didn't mind. Someone had to be responsible, and I'd gotten good at it. After high school, I earned a partial scholarship to Ann Arbor and worked my way through college. I studied business, lived in a tiny apartment with a kitchenette and a rickety table, and started experimenting with selling homemade meals made from local ingredients. Those nights smelled like fried onions and burnt coffee. I'd tweak every line of code on my website, send dozens of emails to suppliers, only to hear the cold dial tone when they hung up. But I didn't quit. 3 years later, a popular food blogger wrote about my jarred salads, and overnight everything exploded. Orders poured in like a storm. Investors reached out, production expanded. By 27, I had a fresh meal delivery company across the Midwest, six-figure revenue, and my own small condo. I thought I'd finally made it. Then my family came back. During the years I struggled, they barely called, just a few holiday texts here and there. But once things got better, the favors started. My dad needed money to fix his truck just until the pension comes in. My mom wanted to remodel her kitchen for health reasons. My brother wanted a loan to start a mobile car wash. The timing's perfect, he said, before disappearing with the money. My sister needed tuition and supplies for art school. Every time I transferred the funds, convincing myself it was love, responsibility, family. At first, it even felt good, prideful, like I was doing what I was supposed to. But slowly, the thank yous stopped. They were replaced by cold messages. "Cindy, can you cover the electric bill?" Or, "Hey, can you send a few hundred more?" The school just added new fees. It stopped feeling like kindness. It became obligation. No one asked if I was okay. No one remembered I was running a business, managing a life. I started keeping track, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, realizing I was quietly supporting 3 families. Last summer, I hosted a get-together at my place in Ann Arbor. I rented extra tables, ordered food from my favorite suppliers, salads, barbecue fresh bread, even a backyard fire pit for marshmallows. Everyone came laughing, chatting, drinking, but no one offered to help. No one asked if I needed anything. In the middle of dinner, my brother raised his glass and said, "Here's to our family for always sticking together through tough times." The table erupted in laughter, loud, hollow, echoing. No one mentioned who paid for everything. I smiled and nodded, but something cracked inside me. As the firelight flickered across their faces, I realized I wasn't part of their joy, I was funding it. A walking wallet disguised as the good daughter. And I didn't know it then, but that ordinary summer night was the prelude to the breaking point that was coming. A week after I left, my phone lit up with Kendra's name. Her voice came through tight, laced with urgency. "Cindy, the power bill bounced. What happened to the transfer? We're in a bind here, and it's not like you to miss it." Her tone had that syrupy sweetness she only used when she needed something. She went on about late fees and overdue notices, her voice shifting from scolding to pleading, like, if she just talked long enough, I'd give in the way I always did. I listened without interrupting, then said calmly, "Because I'm useless, remember? I'm sure someone else can handle it better." I hung up before she could respond. That was when the flood started. William left a curt voicemail. "This little stunt isn't helping anyone. Benjamin's car payment is due and we're expecting you to handle it like usual." Then came Benjamin's texts, sharp and entitled, "Accounts closed? Send the money now. I can't miss this payment." Even a few unknown numbers popped up, probably relatives recruited for backup, all chanting the same refrain: demands, expectations, no gratitude. I ignored them all. Instead, I opened my banking apps and carefully shut down every auto payment, tuition, utilities, those random temporary transfers that had somehow become permanent. Each click felt like closing a door I'd left open too long, and with every door that closed, I felt space return inside me. That's when it hit me. All these years, I hadn't been sending money out of love. I'd been buying peace. And now, silence was my reward. That same day, I booked a ticket to Cleveland. It was far enough from Detroit to cut the invisible tether, but close enough not to feel lost. The sky was gray when I arrived, the air damp. My Airbnb overlooked the lake, a small wooden staircase that creaked with every step, freighters drifting in the distance. Mornings started with coffee on the porch. No buzzing phone, no meetings waiting to ambush me. I brought a notebook and filled its pages with the rawest thoughts I'd avoided for years. The moments I was dismissed, the weight I carried alone, the anger I never voiced. By afternoon, I wandered along the old industrial shoreline, the lake wind sharp and metallic, clearing the noise in my head. For the first time, silence didn't feel heavy. It felt clean, expansive, like I was breathing for the first time. Memories surfaced uninvited. Benjamin calling from a Vegas hotel claiming he'd lost his wallet when really he'd blown it all on slot machines, and I wired him thousands without a second thought. Dawn's frantic texts asking for more documents, more fees, more essentials, always just a few $100s at a time, until the total surpassed the seed money I'd once built my business with. I used to think it was family duty, but now I saw it clearly. I was never someone they cared about. I was a convenient solution. Cleveland gave me small joys: a farmer's market that smelled like fresh bread, local dishes that sparked new ideas for my menus. I took naps without guilt, read books that had gathered dust for years. One evening, as the sun bled across the lake, I felt a strange kind of lightness, stronger than any success I'd ever earned. Still deep down, I knew the storm back home was building. Without me, their whole system would start to crack. But for now, I let it. In this quiet, unfamiliar peace, I began to find myself again, slowly, deliberately, in the stillness I'd spent a lifetime avoiding. Back in Detroit, everything began to unravel without me holding it together. Dawn came home for the weekend clutching a crumpled letter from her art school, an official withdrawal notice stamped in red warning she had 30 days to pay her overdue tuition before her records would be locked, and she'd lose her spot. For years, she'd relied on the quiet deposits I made to cover the gaps her financial aid didn't. Now the money was gone. She texted everyone she knew desperate to borrow, but no one could help. Meanwhile, the shiny pickup truck Benjamin loved showing off on social media was hauled away right from the parking lot at his job. Michigan law was clear: miss 2 payments and the bank can repossess without warning. He missed both, convinced I'd swoop in like always. When the tow truck came, he called William in a panic, his voice breaking, but there was no rescue this time. The repo company didn't care about his charm or excuses. William and Kendra fared no better. Utility bills, electric, gas, water, bounced one after another, late fees piling up by the day. Then the mortgage payment failed too. The bank issued a delinquency notice, the first step toward foreclosure, within 90 days. Kendra scrambled to call relatives, begging for help, but everyone had their own struggles. William, the man who always prided himself on being calm, left a message for the neighbor muttering something about a temporary cash flow issue, though his voice trembled with fear. And then came the next blow. They started rewriting the story. To everyone who would listen, they painted me as the selfish daughter who vanished without warning, abandoning the family that had done everything for her. The whispers spread fast through aunts, uncles, cousins, even relatives in Ohio. My phone lit up with messages. Why would you do that? How could you turn your back on them? Some scolded, others pitied me, but none remembered the years I'd quietly wired money or the debts I'd paid off without a single thank you. Then a message came from Aunt Krista, short, warm, and steady. I heard what happened, she wrote. I've seen this before, Cindy. You don't owe them your life. No lectures, no judgment, just understanding, the kind I hadn't realized I'd been starving for. Krista had seen Kendra depend on others her whole life, always armed with a new excuse, and she'd seen me play the fixer, the silent provider behind their facade. What was falling apart now wasn't just financial, it was structural. Dawn's art dream was fading fast, her confidence shrinking as deadlines passed. Benjamin was on the verge of losing his job, no car, no clients, and a boss running out of patience. William and Kendra drowned in overdue notices, collection calls ringing nonstop. The farmhouse I once helped refinance had become an anchor dragging them under. In Cleveland, I sat by the window reading Krista's message again, letting every word sink in. Their chaos wasn't my responsibility anymore. For the first time, I saw our bond for what it truly was, not family, but dependency I had fed for years. As the cracks in their world widened, I didn't rush to seal them. I let the distance stretch and grow, because deep down I knew the road ahead would demand a version of me stronger than ever before. 3 weeks after I left, Krista texted asking to meet and clear the air. She chose a small cafe in Detroit, the kind with scratched wooden tables polished by years of coffee cups and quiet conversations. The smell of roasted beans filled the air, blending with the soft laughter of early regulars. I drove in from Cleveland, torn between caution and hope, wondering if this could finally be an honest conversation. Krista had always been the calm one, the only person in the family who saw through the noise, and maybe foolishly I believed this time would be different. But the moment I walked in, I knew it wasn't. Kendra, William, Benjamin, and Dawn were already there, sitting across the table in a tight row, their faces hard, their silence sharp. Krista tried to start gently, telling everyone to stay calm, but Kendra cut in, her voice slicing through the air. Cindy, you left this family in chaos. How could you be so selfish? There wasn't a trace of remorse. Only accusation. William crossed his arms and nodded in agreement. We raised you better than this. You don't turn your back on family. Benjamin leaned forward, eyes narrowed. You froze my account. My job's falling apart because of you. Dawn gripped her phone, her voice trembling but full of blame. Because of you, I might lose my semester. I could get expelled. I waited for something, any acknowledgement of the years I spent carrying them. The tuition I covered, the bills I paid, the debts I erased, without hearing a single thank you. But there was nothing. Just the same chorus of entitlement, louder this time, as if I owed them my entire life. Krista tried to step in, her voice soft but steady, yet they drowned her out completely, their accusations overlapping until it became noise. That's when I realized this wasn't a reconciliation, it was an ambush. When Kendra paused to catch her breath, I stood up, met Krista's eyes, and said quietly, "Thank you for trying." Then I walked out. Back in Ann Arbor, I called George, an old college friend and now my lawyer, the kind of man who didn't waste words. I told him everything. "I'm done funding them," I said. "Transfer Dawn's education fund somewhere else. Make it a scholarship for someone who actually needs it." George just said, "Okay," opened his files, and within hours began moving tens of thousands of dollars into a student aid fund at a Michigan university. For the first time, my money was going where it belonged. Then I asked him to review the farm documents. Years ago, when they almost lost it, I helped refinance the loan and paid off more than I should have. My name was still on the paperwork. George confirmed it. Every payment, every transfer, they all gave me legal standing they'd conveniently ignored. I watched him mark each document, every receipt, every proof of what I'd done, and I felt the weight start to lift. That cafe meeting had taken the last bit of guilt out of me. Kendra's outrage, William's cold stare, Benjamin's anger, Dawn's resentment. They didn't want family. They wanted a lifeline I'd stopped providing. And though Krista had tried, I finally understood there was nothing left to fix. In their eyes, I was never a daughter or sister. I was an ATM with a pulse. Sitting in my apartment, surrounded by quiet and the neat stack of papers that proved my freedom, I leaned back and let the silence fill the room. The farm, that old symbol of obligation, no longer tied me down. I wasn't just walking away from them anymore. I was reclaiming myself. And this time, every decision would be made slowly, firmly, and entirely on my own terms. By the end of that month, I drove back to Detroit without telling anyone. The spare key to the old family farmhouse sat heavy in my jacket pocket, a relic from a trust that no longer existed. It was late, the road empty, except for the hum of crickets and the faint yellow light spilling from the living room window. I slipped in through the back door, quiet, not to confront them, but to see things for myself. From the hallway, their voices cut through the stillness, Kendra's sharp as glass, William's low and bitter, Benjamin's angry, and Dawn's whining like a child denied her way. "Cindy's just being dramatic," Kendra snapped. "She thinks she's royalty, hoarding money like it's hers alone." William grunted. "She disappeared just to teach us a lesson." Benjamin added, "She's probably spending it all on herself while my job's falling apart." And Dawn, in her usual plaintive tone, said, "Because of her, I had to reapply for financial aid. Not a single thank you, not one moment of accountability, only blame, as if I were the villain in a story they rewrote to make themselves feel better." I stood there, the sting familiar but fading, replaced by something else, clarity. I walked into the study, pulled out my phone, and took photos, the peeling wallpaper, the cracked porch, the overgrown field. This wasn't nostalgia anymore. It was documentation for a listing. The place I once saved was about to become the thing I finally let go. Sitting in my car, I opened the family group chat and typed, "I'm done. From now on, you're on your own." I hit send, silenced the notifications, and drove away, watching the house shrink in my rearview mirror until it was just a shadow. That night, I called a real estate agent and started the process of selling the portion of land still legally under my name. A few days later, I stumbled across Dawn's post on a fundraising page, a tear-soaked narrative about family betrayal and dreams shattered by her sister's cruelty. She even claimed our mother was sick. I didn't reply, didn't defend myself. I didn't need to shout to be heard. Instead, I created an anonymous account, uploaded screenshots of every payment over $90,000 in tuition, car loans, and debts paid in full. No names, no captions, no rage, just proof. Within hours, her story unraveled, flooded with comments and questions until she deleted the post entirely. That evening, I sat in my apartment in Ann Arbor, scrolling through the draft photos for the property listing. The farmhouse looked smaller now, ordinary, stripped of all the power it once held over me. Their words from that night still echoed faintly, but they no longer carried pain, only confirmation. They never needed me. They needed my money. That text "I'm done" wasn't just an ending. It was a boundary. Exposing Dawn's lies was the first step toward reclaiming myself. The house would sell, and with it the final thread binding me to them would disappear. I leaned back, let the silence fill the room, and for the first time in years I knew with absolute certainty everything that comes next belongs to me. A few weeks later, a certified letter arrived at my office in Ann Arbor. The envelope was crisp and white, sealed tight, my name typed neatly across the front. Inside was a letter from William, cold, formal, every word calculated. He was demanding a meeting to fairly divide the profits from the sale of the family farm. It sounded reasonable enough, but I knew exactly what it meant. They wanted a share of the money I had bled for all those years. I handed the letter to George, my attorney and old friend, who had seen me through every storm. He raised an eyebrow, pulled out an old file, and flipped to a contract I'd almost forgotten about, the refinancing agreement I'd signed with them when I saved the farm from foreclosure. "They signed here," he said, tapping the line where they had officially relinquished ownership in exchange for me paying the debt. He drafted a short, precise response, attached a copy of the contract, and sent it back by certified mail. No explanations, no emotion, just facts. As the sale of the farm moved forward, I instructed George to file a lien against the property. The $70,000 I had poured into that land plus interest gave me the legal right to hold my share. Within days, my name was recorded and the property was frozen until the debt was satisfied. The broker warned me that doing this might force them to sell, but I knew they had nothing left to give. The accounts were empty, their credit wrecked. The auction came fast. The Michigan sky was heavy and gray, the farmhouse standing tired and small against the wind. I stood beside the broker, calm as their car pulled up the long dirt drive. Kendra, William, Benjamin, and Dawn stepped out, pale, shaken eyes darting. Kendra spoke first, her voice trembling. "Cindy, this is our home. Think about what family means." William said nothing, his jaw tight. Benjamin's tone was sharp, accusing. "You're destroying this family over some grudge." Dawn cried, her voice breaking. "I can't finish school now, you're ruining my life." I looked at them, steady and clear. "You all made your choices," I said quietly. "I paid for those choices for years. Today, I'm done. It wasn't cruelty. It was exhaustion. No more manipulation. No more guilt. Just truth." The auctioneer's voice cut through the air, the bids climbing higher, the sound of the gavel echoing like a closing chapter. Kendra clung to William's arm, whispering frantically. Benjamin paced, cursing under his breath. Dawn scrolled through her phone as if a miracle might appear on the screen. I stayed still, watching as strangers bid on what used to be our home. A young couple won in the end, their smiles bright, their hands intertwined. Hope glowed in their faces, reflecting a future that no longer belonged to me or to them. When the final gavel fell, I shook the couple's hands. They didn't know it, but that handshake ended a lifetime of carrying what was never mine to hold. As the crowd thinned, Kendra approached, her voice barely above a whisper. "We can still fix this, Cindy. We're family." I met her eyes. Family doesn't treat each other like a bank. I'm done fixing things. Then I turned and walked away, the gravel crunching beneath my shoes, their silence stretching behind me. Back in Ann Arbor, the confirmation of the sale arrived. Because of the lien, I recovered every dollar I had invested, and the rest went toward clearing their debts. The farm was no longer my burden. For years, I had held everything together for them. Now I let go to hold on to myself. The relief was almost physical, like fog lifting after a long, endless storm. That day, I didn't lose my family. I finally broke free from the chains they built around me. Weeks after the auction, the court gave them 30 days to vacate the farm. The order was clear leave or be removed. When the deadline came, the movers reported back that the house was chaos. Half-packed, boxes, chairs, overturned dishes piled in the sink. Kendra and William's once proud farmhouse, the symbol of everything they clung to, now looked like the wreckage of a life they'd run out of strength to hold on to. Benjamin lost his job at the car wash. Without a car, his client stopped calling. The debts piled up faster than the excuses he used to throw around so easily. Kendra and William, drowning in unpaid bills, filed for bankruptcy under Michigan law. They lost everything: the farm, the furniture, even their credit, and ended up in a cramped rental apartment living off canned soup and restless nights. Dawn dropped out of college when she couldn't pay tuition anymore. Her dreams of becoming an artist sat collecting dust in a portfolio under her bed while she pulled double shifts at a coffee shop to cover the basics. A week later, the movers called me. They'd found something in the attic, an old notebook of mine tucked in a dusty box. I drove back to Detroit to pick it up and met Lori, my college roommate, at a small cafe in Midtown. We sat across from each other, flipping through the pages, my messy handwriting from another lifetime, filled with business ideas, late-night plans, and endless lists of payments I'd made to save my family. Lori looked at me, shaking her head softly, her voice low but steady. "You've been carrying them since you were way too young, Cindy. You don't owe anyone your future." Her words hit deep, gentle grounding, undeniable. That notebook was proof that I had done enough, that I could finally stop. I needed space, air, something that didn't smell like guilt or memory, so I booked a ticket to Little Rock. The Arkansas air was warm, the roads lined with old oak trees, the river drifting lazily under the sunset. I walked for hours with no phone ringing, no one asking for help. Just the rustle of leaves and the sound of my own breathing. With every step, it felt like I was shedding another layer of the past. For the first time in years, I was alive for myself. When I got back, I made a decision. Charleston, South Carolina, it called to me with its cobblestone streets and ocean breeze. I rented a small loft downtown, just big enough for a work desk, a bed, and a few plants. My business thrived. The meal kits I'd built from scratch now shipped nationwide, and I hired a manager to take care of the day-to-day. My life became simple but full: morning runs by the water, evenings sketching new recipes, weekends reading by the window facing the sea. One night, an email popped up from Dawn, sent at midnight. "I'm sorry," she wrote, "for everything. I didn't realize how much you did for us." I read it twice, then archived it without replying. Not out of bitterness, but because there was nothing left to say. Some apologies come too late, long after the damage can be undone. I didn't need it to move forward. That night, sitting in my loft with the Charleston lights spilling through the window, I felt peace settle into my bones. My family had fallen apart. Benjamin unemployed, William and Kendra bankrupt, Dawn dropped out. But that wasn't my failure anymore. It was theirs. For most of my life, I believed love meant endurance, that my worth depended on how much I could carry for others. But now I know, letting go is also a form of love, the kind you give yourself. The old notebook, the farm, the emails, they're just relics of a life I've outgrown. Now every day is a blank page, and I'm the one holding the pen. I closed my laptop, leaned back, and let the quiet fill the room. For the first time, home didn't feel like a place I had to protect. It felt like something I finally had within me. Looking back, I realized the most precious thing wasn't justice or revenge, it was freedom. The kind that comes when you finally choose yourself over the chains that kept you small. I used to think family was unchangeable until they showed me that love without respect isn't love at all. This isn't a story about loss. It's a story about finding yourself, about standing up and walking away with peace in your heart. And if you've ever felt overlooked, silenced, or burdened beyond your limits, remember this: you deserve peace. You deserve a life where you're seen and valued. I'd love to hear your thoughts after hearing my story. Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe if you want to join me for more stories of healing and freedom. Thank you for staying with me till the end.